is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea, then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you my favorite weird news stories of the past few days. So starting us off this week in ironic news that Alanis Morissette would love. In Albany, New York's top government transparency official was hired in darkness. That's right. When the administration government, Andrew M. Cuomo announced the hiring of Shoshana Bawali as executive director at the Committee on Open Government last week, came as news to many of the body's 11 commissioners by design. The Cuomo administration had ordered Bawali's hiring to stay under closed wraps until just before a press release was issued on January 6th, keeping the news secret from even the people overseeing the entity. Peter Grimm, who was appointed to the committee by Cuomo, had no idea that Bawali had been hired until he read about it in the newspaper. Heard about it in the newspaper. I read her bio, and I look forward to learning more about her, said Grimm, the minority leader of the county legislature. The Cuomo administration's extensive efforts into tightly controlled public information are well established. New York is widely viewed as among the most challenging states in the country to obtain public records, despite a law on the books outlining the information is presumed to be public. In her new role, it's also not clear if Bawali will be allowed to push back or if she even wants to. During her prior 4 years in the Cuomo administration, she was general counsel at the State Office Information Technology Services and oversaw agency responses to open record requests. She routinely wrote opinions in favor of delaying and denying Freedom of Information Law, FOIL, requests, ruling against the Albany Times-Union in 10 out of 10 decisions she issued last year to the newspaper. The committee, a very small office within the Department of State, is a quirk within state government, where its staff attorneys in the past have focused on writing legal opinions about whether states' agencies are justified in their decisions concerning the Freedom of Information Law requests they handle. It's also tasked with providing guidance and opinions on other open government matters, including the Open Meetings Law. These opinions, sometimes cited in court cases, aren't legally binding, and the Cuomo administration and many other government entities have routinely ignored them. Still, in a state government culture where public dissent is shunned, the committee's opinions, most of them written by the now scandal-plagued former executive director, Robert G. Freeman, have at times cast doubt on Cuomo's transparency practices. We understand him casting doubt on the transparency practices if they are, in fact, very non-transparent. The committee, which issues annual reports on matters involving government transparency, has been known for its independence under Freeman, whose legal expertise built over decades in the job gained him acclaim and influence with the news media, masking a darker side. Freeman resigned in disgrace last year after a state investigation found he'd simultaneously engaged in extensive sexual harassment of women who were either co-workers or journalists. The level of autonomy enjoyed by Freeman may be ending with his successor. In the state's Inspector General's report documenting Freeman's misdeeds, the office found that his frequency made statement that he answered to no one in the state government meant he had too much freedom, which allegedly enabled his unbridled harassment. The Inspector General recommends implementation of a clear supervisory and reporting structure for Freeman's successor. So Freeman's departure, government reform groups called for a replacement that would be perceived as independent from the state's political power structure. Instead, Cuomo picked someone who, for much of her career, has worked under the governor. Boulet, who's been paid $180,000 a year in the new job, said in a statement she takes it very seriously. The role in office has been promoting an open and transparent government for the people of New York. Said the office will continue the committee's important mission to advise the government, public, and news media on the freedom of information, open meetings, and personal privacy protection laws. Committee and its staff will continue to offer guidance and prepare written legal advisory opinions, deliver training to interested groups. I look forward to working with the committee members, the press, and other stakeholders committed to an honest and open democracy. Do we not see the irony here? Am I the only one that sees the irony here? Just before a press release was issued announcing the hiring, the committee's chairwoman, Attorney Franklin Stone, said in an email announcing, we are asked by the DOS to hold off informing the full board until everything was final. And they got authorization to send an email an hour or so before the press release was issued. The best candidate amongst many impressive applicants. We are looking forward to her leadership as it enters a new era. So a little background on the reputation of the new hire as an adept attorney. In late 2017, an anonymous letter sent to Cuomo's office outlined still unproven allegations of wrongdoing by the leadership, sparked an inspector general's investigation into the industry and a bunker mentality. Allegations were posted on the website, and office leadership shut down employees' access to website for their computers. So all of this all of this transparency stuff does not sound very transparent. I think the idea of like hiding somebody's identification, this intently before kind of exposing who it was, it seems a little ironic to me. Maybe that's just my perception, but I feel that if you're gonna announce the head of government transparency, hiring them in complete darkness, hidden from everyone, probably not the best start. Maybe that's just me. Yeah. So that one I thought was quite weird, quite odd. The irony of it I found kind of hilarious. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about a new town opened in North Korea that is, it's interesting. We'll talk about it when we come back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. We talked about the irony of hiring somebody for transparency under disguise. And now we're going to talk about a town in North Korea that I find a little bit odd. Kim Jong-un has officially opened up a new town in North Korea that boasts apartments, hotels, and a ski resort built by slaves. Boasting about this. Sun reports that the North Korean leader cut the red ribbon at the Samjeon, which is envisioned as a socialist utopia, according to the country's state media. A massive celebration involving fireworks was held at the town on Monday. A news article ran photos of Mr. Kim smiling as he cut the ribbon at the ceremony attended by thousands, while state television showed beige, green, and purple buildings covered in blankets of snow. Town is envisioned as a socialist utopia, features new apartments, hotels, a ski resort, and a commercial, cultural, and medical facilities. Quite the weekend getaway, this socialist utopia built by slaves. I'm going to let you take from that what you will. Is that your idea of an ideal vacation? Sounds pretty horrific to me. It's turned into an example of a mountainous modern city under socialism, an epitome of modern civilization, they reported. To 4,000 families could be housed in the town, while 380 blocks of public and industrial buildings and hundreds of hectares, according to the agency. Correspondent specialist at NK News described the town as a model. It appears now, it has nice, clean facades and unique, ornately designed buildings that would not resemble really any other city in North Korea. Someone roaming around as a tourist would not stumble into less well-kept areas away from the main road. In the case of other cities, the town is quite small and walkable, measuring around 2 to 3 kilometers in each direction. The town is one of the largest economic initiatives Mr. Kim has launched as part of his drive for a self-reliant economy. Thrilling stuff. A call for Washington to lift its nuke talks. Anyway, the construction was delayed on this, chiefly due to shortages in construction materials and labor as a result of sanctions imposed. These delays prompted Pyongyang to mobilize youth labor brigades, which defectors and human rights activists likened to slave labor, as they got no pay, poor food, and were forced to work more than 12 hours a day for up to 10 years in return for better chances to enter a university or join the all-powerful Workers' Party. That's what slave labor sounds like to me. Over the past year, State media has reported on factories, families, and individuals who sent winter jackets, tools, shoes, blankets, and biscuits to the town, which the defector said was part of the cash-strapped regime's campaign to source supplies from the public. So, what do we think about this town in North Korea? This Orwellian type utopia that was created literally from slave labor. I thought that this was definitely weird. Sometimes I try to make these very funny. Other times I just see something that's just far too strange, even though it's not necessarily funny, to ignore. And this was definitely one of those things for me. I just think it's absolutely terrifying that this is still happening in the world, that there is still slave labor being used to benefit richer people. And not only is that happening, but it's being celebrated. It's being celebrated. Let's have a nice ski vacation on the backs of people working for free with very little pay. Yeah. I mean, there are still forms of unpaid labor all over the place. There's lots of unpaid internships and things like that, but this is quite literally physical labor, so that's a little bit different. I don't know. You tell me. Maybe you guys have. Maybe you guys are working in unpaid internships, and you understand what that's like. It doesn't quite feel as similar. Most of my jobs are unpaid. But I don't feel like a slave, if you know what I mean. It's not physical, so it's a little different. Although I can't say that I would want someone to use my labor as a vacation, you know? This was a weird one for me. I thought it was a very strange news article. I hope that you also find it strange. And probably you will. If not, please tell me why it's not weird. Please tell me if you would stay at this utopia ski resort built on the backs of laborers. That's hey, what other kind of vacation spots would we like to do for that? Like a coffee tasting from the unpaid interns in an office, or like I guess literally people use this all the time, like entertainment. How often have you been to a great comedy show? I guarantee you, if you go to comedy a lot, most of the shows that you've been to, those people were unpaid. Comedians, because they were paid in exposure. Exposure, guys. Quickly, in this case, literally exposure to the elements. In most cases, it's exposure that just leads to nothing. So, that one was a weird one for me. Still not sure what I think about it, but that's cool. When we come back, we're going to talk about auctioning and weird things up for auction. If you're a person that likes to watch those weird auction shows, you will like this a lot. We're going to talk about specifically a golden toilet sat on by none other than Frank Sinatra. I'm going to talk about that when we come back from the break. So stay tuned.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back. For the break, we were talking about some weird socialist utopia getaways. And now we're going to talk about items from Frank Sinatra's Chairman Suite in Atlantic City being on the auction block. CBS Philadelphia reports allowing the public a chance at living like the chairman of the board. S&S Auction in Swedesboro, New Jersey, recently purchased the contents of Sinatra's executive suite at the former Golden Nugget Casino in Atlantic City. And this Sunday, it's all up for sale. You'll have a chance, as the public, to own something that Frank Sinatra sat on or slept in. S&S Auction marketing manager David Barenblit told CBS some of the items were used by Sinatra to entertain his famous friends. Others, like a marble toilet with a gold seat, are flush with Hollywood opulence. These would probably have cost somewhere around $20,000 to $30,000 when they were new, he said. Casino mogul Steve Wynn's direction, items from around the world furnished Sinatra's enormous 1980s suite. Some items can be had for a few $100s or less. Others, like Ferdinand Berthold clock, could fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars. The clock is ornamented in bronze with an ebony case. So these pieces acquired very, very expensive, very exciting. You could be sitting on the same toilet that Frank Sinatra sat on, and it's gold. So that's cool, right? Would you buy a toilet that a celebrity has sat on, or is that super weird? You tell me. So because of this story, I wanted to see what other odd things people have bought in the past at auctions. So let's get into it. Yeah? Should we get into it? Should we talk about weird stuff? Let's do it. So here's the 15 weirdest things that people bought in auctions. New Zealand. Yep. The country, New Zealand. A man from Australia thought it'd be hilarious to try and auction off the country on eBay. Country bid started at 1 penny. Neither eBay nor the Prime Minister of New Zealand thought it was very funny. Thought that kind of stupidity I'll leave to the tabloid media, said the Prime Minister when he learned that the auction had risen 3,000 before it was cancelled. Number 2, another toilet. J.D. Salinger's toilet, specifically. 2010, the couple who bought the late and famously reclusive author's home decided to auction off his commode. Bids started at $1 million to sit where the author Shirley pondered some of his greatest work and tweets. Number 3, a taxidermied ostrich. A rare northern Italian taxidermied ostrich made in 1785 was auctioned off by Christie's in 2013 for $40,000. It's a lot of money for a dead bird. Number 4, cake. Slice of cake from the 1947 wedding of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth was recently sold in an auction for $730. In addition to this slice of cake, a note with the compliments of Prince Philip and the Queen herself. I hope they didn't eat it. That's some old cake. Number 5, a violin. The Titanic's band leader, Wallace Hartley, famously continued to play his violin as the ship sank into the northern Atlantic Ocean to soothe frantic passengers. When his violin went up for auction, it sold in 10 minutes for $1,025,000. Number 6, a single record. When the band The Sexual Objects released their album Marshmallow, they decided to release just one copy on vinyl. The auction went off on eBay and sold for $5,500, which is considerably less than the album would have made had it been distributed by a label. So probably not the smartest move. This one is super weird. Actor's breath. A man auctioned off a jar that he claimed could possibly, not 100%, but possibly be filled with the breath of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. He had virtually no evidence that it did, nor is this even possible. But the jar sold, nonetheless, for $444. Number 8, a wedding ring. People have a weird fascination with Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who murdered President John F. Kennedy, and his wedding band went for sale, sold to an anonymous Texan for $118,000. A spacesuit worn by Justin Bieber when he paired up with Ozzy Osbourne to shoot a commercial for the Super Bowl in 2011 was sold to an anonymous bidder. Obviously, I wouldn't want anyone to know if I'd bought that. For $5,580. Number 10, a watermelon. A rare black watermelon from Japan sold for $4,053, making it definitely the most expensive watermelon in the world. I hope it tasted really good, because that's a lot of money for a melon. Number 11, dirty underwear. Elvis wore a pair of underwear underneath one of his infamous white jumpsuits during a concert in 1977. The stained underwear failed to find a buyer when it went to auction. That's good, because that's gross. Skeleton of a man wearing a tuxedo along with his bride, a female skeleton clutching a Bible, was sold for $950. Sounds like a deal, right? If you want human remains. A negligee, a floor-length black negligee owned by Monica Lewinsky, was part of 60 items inspected by the prosecutor Kenneth Starr in the case against President Bill Clinton. Items were supposed to go for no less than $50,000, but their actual selling price was unknown. Human hair. During a manic episode that Britney Spears suffered, shaving off her hair and chasing the paparazzi with an umbrella, hair salon sold the singer's locks for more than $1 million. And finally, dentures. Dentures worn by Winston Churchill were sold at an auction for $18,860 to a man who can only be called a real Churchill-ed. The winner already owned a microphone that Churchill used to record some of his famous speeches. So if that's not obsession, I don't know what is. When we come back, some more weird news from New Jersey. Shocking. This time, some Popeyes news. Yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get back from the break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. When we left, we were talking about an auction in New Jersey that was selling a gold toilet and some various other weird things that have been auctioned off throughout the years. Now we're going to change her up a bit, and we're going to talk about another thing that happened in New Jersey at a Popeyes. Popeyes chicken sandwich has been an agent of chaos in an already chaotic year. It's been the purported cause of food fights, fist fights, a car wreck, a threatened shooting, and a stabbing. Could be argued that if people are going to act like a-holes, they're going to act like a-holes whether or not there is a sandwich involved. But it can be proven that the drive-thru at a certain Popeyes in Rutherford, New Jersey, is causing traffic jams on Route 17. Police have decided they can take action, and they will. So an electronic sign has been posted outside of Popeyes that a sandwich isn't worth a ticket. Do not delay traffic. Pretty simple, straightforward. I like it. Rutherford's police chief John Russo elaborated, saying what we are seeing is people waiting an extraordinary amount of time in both drive-thrus to get a sandwich or a coffee without consideration for the vehicles not trying to get into the establishments. Recommended that people park their cars and actually go inside to Popeyes for their sandwich. Neither Russo nor the police department would tell the TV station if any tickets have been issued for people desperate for chicken. That's a lot of work for a chicken sandwich. I'm not that particularly I don't eat meat, but I'm not particularly passionate about any food that much. To be honest, if I see a drive-thru that has more than 2 cars, I'm not going in, you know? I'll just walk into the restaurant. I'd rather wait inside than in a car. Is that weird? That I would rather... Yeah, no, it's not weird. I think I would rather just wait inside. And I don't think I would fist fight anyone over a sandwich unless I was really hungry. So that's a little weird thing of the law having to kind of intervene in a very strange story. I can't imagine the police were particularly stoked about having to intervene in that. However, speaking of gross food, amid the flurry of new prohibitions signed over the weekend by the governor, no new furs, no circus animals, no smoking on the beach, there's a new California law that lifts a prohibition. So, fear not, everyone in the state, you can now eat roadkill. Nope, you heard that right. You can now eat roadkill. Legislation sponsored by State Senator Barb Archuleta of Montebello allows drivers who fatally strike a deer, elk, pronghorn, antelope, or wild pig, specifically, to take the dead animal home as long as they apply within 24 hours for a free wildlife salvage permit. So before you scarf it down, remember to do all of the proper paperwork, okay? Before you eat your roadkill, make sure you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Because they'll find you. Not sure how they'd find you, to be honest, because you will have eaten the evidence. You remember that story about the woman that, killed her? I think it's a myth. I hope it is. I think it's an old wives' tale. About the woman who killed her husband with a lamb shank and then cooked it for the cops for dinner. So that the murder weapon was gone. It's like that, The new law also allows such salvaging by people who have happened upon recently dead animals on the road. How does that 24-hour work? There. Is it 24 hours from the animal dying or from you picking it up? Because either way, how do you prove it? That's a hard one to prove. I would like to know that. Hi, California cops. Help me out. How do you prove that? Please write in. I need to know. The practice would not be allowed on interstates. That's where it gets tricky. And the commission charged with its oversight is permitted to limit it to certain counties. So be careful, okay? You're going to bear in mind which county that you're in before you eat the roadkill. Make sure you're checking that out before the law's signing. Only officers of certain state and local agencies could legally pick up roadkill, presumably to dispose of it. I don't think they were picking up the roadkill to, manja. I think they were probably just getting rid of the bodies. So don't run to your barbecues just yet. The law will go into effect in 2021 with the launching of a pilot program that includes creation of a mobile app for requesting a permit. SB 395 shares a number with the highway running along the east side of the Sierra. Was approved by a vote of 40-0, unanimous baby in the Senate, and 63-5 in the Assembly. The Assembly members not voting, I don't think I'm going to mention. They need their privacy too. Okay, they probably had their reasons for not wanting to eat roadkill. Although, what could they possibly be, am I right? How could you not want to eat roadkill? That sounds very appealing. Although, environmentally friendly and conscious. So who's the real villain, That's right. What do you think? Disgusting? Awful? Or, kind of great? As long as you season it well. And probably cook it very high temperature. Because of disease and such. I'm just looking out for you. If you're going to be eating the roadkill, do it right, is all I'm saying. Just trying to be on your side here, kids, okay? Yeah. So, that's all for our roadkill news. Can't believe I'm saying that. When we return, we're going to talk about a Japanese billionaire in Tokyo who has promised the moon, like the beloved George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life. You want the moon, Mary? Come, I'll lasso it and bring it down for you, She'll take it. So, Japanese billionaire promising the moon when we come back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right. Welcome back to the Weird News pod. For the break, we were talking about eating roadkill, which is fun and legal in California now. And now, in Tokyo, applications to become Japanese billionaire Yukazu Maewaza's girlfriend have topped 20,000 applications. Streaming service Ibima TV said on Thursday ahead of its documentary search for a life partner to take them on a moon voyage. What is it, Mary? You want the moon? Very romantic stuff. The show's application site now includes a love diagnostics test where potential entrants can test their compatibility with the entrepreneur, obviously not interpreter, who sold his online fashion business, Zozo Inc., SoftBank Group Core last year. Multiple choice questions include, if you rode in a private jet, where would you go? And if he farted in front of you, what would you say? All right, these are the cutthroat kind of things that the people need to know. All right, that's fair enough. We need to know what's going to happen when the flatulence comes out. With users presented with a photo of the billionaire varying from happy to sad, depending on their score. Yeah. So, a little initiative, a little feedback right there. This is what I would look like if I saw you. The TV, Ibema TV, backed by an online ad agency cyber agent, broadcaster TV Asahi, is one of Japan's foremost proponents of the reality dating show, securing him for full moon lovers. It's great for the service, aims to generate social media traffic, and targets young viewers who are turning off TV because everyone's online now. Current and upcoming shows include one in which Japanese-speaking female contestants are paired with foreign men who don't speak their language, and another one in which women go on dates with princes several years their junior. So a little twist on The Prince and Me, or The King and I, or Princess Diaries. Japanese broadcasters have been slow to offer streaming events, even as ad spending shifts online, worried about upsetting their regional TV networks by offering nationwide streaming services. Public broadcaster NHK, which had been legally constrained from offering such services, will begin streaming in April. Following rule changes last year, the reality dating format got a boost in Japan when the success of the hit show Terrace House, which was developed by broadcaster Fuji Holdings before being picked up by Netflix, building an international fan base through its relaxed tone and mild-mannered contestants. So, that was an interesting story I read. But wait, guys, there's a twist. Because immediately after this story, I read another one. A Japanese fashion billionaire, Yusaku, has pulled out of his documentary search for a girlfriend to take us on a voyage around the moon, with Elon Musk's SpaceX citing his quote-unquote mixed feelings about participating. So these stories were actually launched 2 days apart, which is why I wanted to report them back to back like that, and come at you in real time with it, because it's just hilarious. So this, the 44-year-old announced that he was seeking single females, over 20 willing to vie to become his girlfriend for a documentary to be aired, on Abima TV. And by the time he closed applications, over 28,000 people had applied. He has said that he is extremely remorseful about the decision to pull out, apologizing to the applicants and Abima TV staff in posts on Twitter, where he has Japan's most followed account with more than 7 million followers. The founder and former CEO of online fashion retailer Zozo, which is a name of a popular demon if you follow the paranormal, is known for launching big ideas with much fanfare, although some of them don't pan out as planned. Wow, look at that. How shocking. As CEO, he launched the Zozo suit, polka dot bodysuit, that allowed users to collect body measurements in order to make custom-made clothes, but it did not work out well in practice. He also outlined an ambitious overseas expansion plan that wildly undershot its targets, leading to a huge crash in the company's stock price. He has pledged, in lieu of this disappointing blow, pulling out of the potential dating show that he announced and pulled out of very, very closely together. He's pledged to give away $9 million to his Twitter followers in what he says is a social experiment to see if the payment boosts their happiness. So who says money can't buy you love? Other than the Beatles. Quite liked this. I thought it was very silly that these things were kind of announced right beside each other. Really doesn't make you feel confident, does it? Does it, people? You know? Although, to be fair, would that have been a great show? Actually, yeah, probably. If you got to see them going to the moon at the end. I'm not surprised that he got a little shaken away from it. I think astronauts are like some of the bravest people in the entire world. The idea of launching myself into outer space is probably the scariest thing I can possibly think of doing. If you can think of a scarier thing, you're wrong. You know? You're wrong. There is nothing scarier. It's just space. That's it. So, deal with that. Remember that. When we return from the break, I have decided to continue this tradition of giving you the best shower thoughts on Reddit from the week. Best shower thoughts when we return from our break.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration, We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. So when we left off, we were talking about a failed experiment from a billionaire to have a dating show that ended in him launching himself and his partner into space. So on that note, I think we should talk about the best shower thoughts in Reddit this week. So here are some very fun shower thoughts from Reddit. If you believe the earth is flat, do you also believe the sun and moon are flat? Something to think about. Can't believe one without the other, right? A jail and a prison are basically the same thing, but a jailer and a prisoner are totally different. Interesting how the suffix changes it. However true or deep a meme may be, it's got grammatical errors. It instantly makes all those who shared it look dumb. It makes all those who shared it look dumb. It's very true. The lottery system is the exact opposite of what Robin Hood did. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, it is. In every event of the Olympics, they should have an average person compete so we can have a point of reference and appreciate the athletes more. I agree with this one. I think they should have like a little lottery system that you can go and compete in an Olympic event and, you put yourself in for an event that you have done, you know, because like we want them to have some form of reference. But then, you know, we see them next to actual athletes. People say life is short, even though it's literally the longest thing we'll ever experience. It's true. Life is short relative to, you know, the universe. But, yeah, that is the longest thing we will ever experience. What if Santa Claus is actually real and our parents just give us presents to hide the fact that we're on the naughty list? Whoa, we've all been on the naughty list this whole time. Guy who invented trash bags literally sold everyone garbage. Yeah. That is a very good point. Your stomach literally thinks all potatoes are mashed. Yeah. It does. I don't trust potatoes. You know, they're masters of disguise. We made them that way, but you know, like fries are actually just like a potato. Somebody looked at a potato and went, nah. This needs more surface area. Yeah. The mashed potatoes are just somebody like brought a potato to someone and said, yeah, can you chew this for me first? So I support that one. When you give someone food, you're feeding them. But when you give them water, you aren't watering them. Aha, English. Tricky, tricky, tricky. We learn to read until we read to learn. Deep, 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 deep. If an alarm is going off, the alarm is on. Whoa, that's one of those, what gets wetter as it dries? A towel, you know? A lot of people confuse left and right But no one ever confuses up and down. That would be a hard thing to confuse. Unless you have, is direction dyslexia. What is that called? Someone help me out. Writing may or may not is actually redundant. So true. There's a lot of redundant phrases that we say really often that I'm 100% guilty of. I definitely do it. I do it as much as anyone. But yeah, it's annoying, isn't it? Taking one of your earbuds is the 2020 equivalent to curtsying. Yeah, you know, you're like acknowledging them as a person to take one of your earbuds out. And you know, with everyone using AirPods now, when you take it out, it like pauses it, right? So you're really like, that is a sincere form of flattery to do that, isn't it? Hump, bump, and lump are all synonyms and also all rhyme. Yeah, it's very true. Those are all things that you could use to describe the thing on a camel. Avoiding eye contact and avoid eye contact with eyes are two completely different things, yeah? Yeah, they are. We'll never truly know what it smells like underwater. Oh, sad. I don't know why that makes me sad. But it really does. Black Friday, Cyber Monday really puts into perspective how much companies could actually sell stuff for. Ha ha! Caught. Remember when teachers used to say, you won't be walking around with a calculator in your pocket? Well, look at us now. It's very true. If Apple made a house, would it have windows? Whoa! A day includes the night, but the night doesn't include the day. True. A fine is a tax for doing wrong. A tax is a fine for doing well. Whoa. That hurts. Taxes are the worst, but taxes do so good. Tug of war should really be named War of Tug. Yep. 100%. That is, yeah. For sure it should be. You can feel a bruise, but you can't feel a bruise. The important thing to that is to know that feel is stressed in that. So yeah, that concludes the most profound Reddit thoughts of the past few days. This is something I really enjoy, and I hope that you do as well. If you don't, tell me to stop, and I will. Otherwise, I'm going to keep doing it because I find it very enjoyable. And with the conclusion of our shower thoughts segment, we come back. We conclude all of the segments from today. You made it through another one. Thank you for sticking with me through to the end. So on that note, thank you for listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review of me. And rate the episode. Please rate the episode. It really helps us boost in the algorithms. Also, please follow us, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a great night.